when we welcome Jose out, we are going to give him a rock star welcome. Everyone is going to stand up, round standing ovation, hoots and hollers, the whole 9 yards. Just pretend like, I like to say Steve Jobs just came back to life, you know? It's kind of back to what we're looking for here. So without any further ado, let's welcome Jose Lee from 71 Pounds. Well, Jose, of course, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Before any of these interviews, I like to sit down with the person I'm interviewing and ask a few questions and get to know their story a little bit. So last week, I had the pleasure of sitting down with Jose for lunch and getting to know his story in more depth. And we've picked some key points of his story to focus on that we think would be applicable to you all and maybe applicable to a wide audience in some cases, and some very specific narrow audience things that maybe issues that some of you are facing, and Jose's way about working through those things. So Jose started 71 Pounds as an idea 4 years ago. It's been in business for about 2 years. Before this, he was in corporate America. So we're going to start back then, with bridging that gap between being part of corporate America to becoming an entrepreneur. So, do you always want to break out in some way, somehow?
Actually, I did, yes. So, I grew up in Peru in South America. My family are immigrants. A lot of my uncles and aunts were entrepreneurs themselves. And my parents specifically were, accountants, so they work in corporate America. I always envy my uncles and aunts having their own businesses. And I just thought at some point in my life I wanted to run my own business. So fast forward, I came to the States about 16 years ago. Came to Carnegie Mellon and did my grad school here. Then I worked for Alibaba, the Chinese e-commerce company that some of you may be familiar with. Worked for Jamba Juice in the shipping logistics department, and then worked for FedEx for 6 years, running their e-commerce and retail practice. So yes, the last 4 years, been working on 71 Pounds. We launched 2 years ago, and it's been an incredible journey so far.
And I think a challenge for people that have full-time jobs and they've got this idea that sparks and is, well, how am I going to pay the bills in the meantime while we get this off the ground? So how do you bridge that gap, Jose?
Yeah, so one of the things that, to me, life is always full of trade-offs, right? I wish I would have started 71 Pounds, 10, 20 years ago when I was much younger, like, a lot of you guys are here. I decided to stay in corporate America for 15 years, had some savings. My wife also works. She's also a provider to the house. So we were fortunate to have some savings before we started. 7 years ago, when I was still at FedEx, I started a distribution and import-export company, which, was also a new business for us. And one of the lessons that I learned from that business was that it was doing very well, still does very well, but it was not scalable. And to me, what I wanted to do in my second venture, which is 71 Pounds, I wanted to leverage something, and I found that out to be software and technology, in order to scale. So we built 71 Pounds through software and technology, and we're approaching and targeting small and medium-sized companies. And we can scale, and we're proud to serve thousands of customers because we're able to scale through software.
And far before you got to those thousands of customers, you had thousands of pitches. So Jose's pitched 71 Pounds about 2,000 times. So if you think money comes easy, go pitch 2,000 times. So, Jose, can you give us the pitch? Tell us what 71 Pounds is all about.
Sure. So, question to the audience before you guys learn about 71 Pounds. Raise your hands. How many of you know that FedEx and UPS offer 100% money-back guarantees refund if their shipment is late, even by 1 minute? There's 5, 7, hands in the audience. So that's literally what we have automated. So 71 Pounds provides free, fast, and automatic FedEx and UPS shipping refunds. Your shipment is late, even by 1 minute, we give you those refunds. 4 out of 5 of our customers today were not aware of the guarantees. So today, they're actually I'm going to repeat that, very, very happy that they get refunds on a weekly basis. So that's the core of our business. That's what we do.
And in those 2,000 times that you've pitched, what percentage of the time do you think that people told you were crazy?
A number of times. I don't know if they use those words specifically, but a lot of people call your baby ugly, and it's just part of something that you have to be aware of, right? So one of the things that I learned through this journey is you have to have a lot of thick skin. People are going to say no. People are going to, just give you different excuses and different reasons why they don't want to invest. And it's up to you to take that feedback and add it and make your pitch and product better over time. It's just part of the journey in understanding, how to filter the correct feedback, how to block the ones that you're not, comfortable with. My wife would tell you I'm probably one of the most stubborn people that you'll ever meet, so I kind of knew from the beginning what we wanted to do, and yes, it took us a lot of pitches to get, our investors in place, but yeah, it was something that from the beginning it was kind of, this is what we want to do.
And in our second interview, we interviewed Rodolfo Sacomán, and he spoke a lot about developing thick skin. He said he's got a resilient skin. You call it a thick skin. You also learned a term over at, I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank. But when you were in the incubator, Techstars, how could I forget that? So when you were in Techstars, they even have a term for this. And what do they call it?
It's actually called mentor whiplash. So for those of you who don't know, so we went through Techstars Chicago 2 years ago in their program. And it's a 3-month program where they actually provide you some funding. They provide you a lot of mentorship advice, and they go through this process of how to build and scale your company. In the first 30 days, we probably had 100 and 150 meetings with a lot of mentors and investors that, again, give you feedback and tell you, hey, Jose, maybe you shouldn't go into the B2B space. Maybe you should go to big business and consumers. Maybe you should not price this and offer this for free. So a lot of the feedback that you get is people from their own perspective, their own backgrounds, their own context. Again, you have to take it and put a weighted average on it and see what you keep and see what you adapt and see what you edit accordingly. So they have a term called mentor whiplash, which is, again, just the whole variety of feedback that a lot of these mentors and investors are going to provide to you. Again, for us, maybe it was stubbornness, maybe it was just that we kind of knew what we wanted to do. We kind of were obviously taking a lot of the feedback into account, but for the most part, we kind of stayed on path.
Was there any validation that you received early on that helped you keep your focus and not get distracted by somebody telling you, A, no, it's B, no, it's Z?
I think there's a couple of things. So one is we were able to get, from maybe 5 or 10 customers that we had initially to about 60 or 80 over the first 3 months. So that was always good. We got some of our early investments from the Techstars Chicago group, so that was also a little bit of good validation and just external people wanting to support your vision and the company that you wanted to build.
Gotcha. And you built this company. Early on, you were looking for a co-founder that could be your technology arm, and ended up that didn't happen. But so you've gone on this journey pretty much alone. You say it's a lonely journey. What have you done to keep yourself mentally in the game and not get exhausted through this process?
Yeah, so interesting journey, right? So at the same time that we were looking for funding, I was like, okay, how do we build this company, right? So initially, yes, I was out here in South Florida talking to a number of developers and engineers and seeing if they would be part of our journey. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to make that sale. So one day I just kept staring at the PowerPoint presentation, which we had as a business plan. I said, okay, you know what, let's stop doing this, let's actually try to do something about it. So we hired a third-party software development company, and we built a beta. So, baby steps, that's beta, got us our first initial beta customers. In my opinion, looking in hindsight now, those initial beta customers were what allowed us to, apply to Techstars and got our early validation, and then it just, took over from there. To answer your second question, this is actually a very, very lonely job, right? So there's a number of startup founders here in the room that have gone through this journey, have already had exits. Jason knows who they are, so I've encouraged them to be part of this seat in the next few settings. But I mentioned to Jason, there's a lot of things that I can't tell my investors. There's a lot of things that I can't tell my spouse because just too many details. And there's a lot of things that we can't tell our employees because of just the nature of the business. So one of the things that we do is we just created this very small informal group. We call it Startup Anonymous, right? So we just share stories, we commiserate over a beer or over coffee or something, and just share with them, hey, here's what I'm facing, what do you think, right? And that's part of something that grew organically here in South Florida. And to a lot of the entrepreneurs here, I would encourage you to if you don't have one, start your own, join one. It's something that I personally saw that in Chicago. There's an organization called Built in Chicago, which helps nurture these kind of events and settings, and I think it's one of the good things that I think South Florida could replicate.
Okay, so find someone to confide in, someone that you can really put it all on the table, and maybe they've been in the same situation as you before, and you guys can exchange some advice. And it's been 4 years ago when you started. Miami's startup landscape or South Florida's startup landscape is a lot different than it is today. So today we're still having a little trouble with funding, but imagine what it was 4 years ago. And even 4 years ago, Jose recognizes that 8 years ago, the resources that he tapped into 4 years ago weren't there, and it would have been even more difficult. So 4 years ago and then through to now, what are some of the sources that you've tapped into? How have you found funding outside of Miami?
So exactly right. 4 years ago, there wasn't as much activity as there is now. There's more activity now, which is always good. I just think it's part of the hustle, right? If you believe in your idea and if you think that there's not the resources here locally to support you, whether it's people or partners or investors, then you go seek them out, right? 3-4 years ago, AngelList was not as developed as what it is today, so I wish I would have raised in these years when you have other resources that are more available to you. It's just part of the networking and the asking for introductions and just trying to tell your story to different people, right? And part of what I learned through the process is, always ask for advice, right? If you ask for money, they'll give you advice. If you ask for advice, ideally they'll give you some money. So that's part of what I learned. I asked too many times for money, and all I got was advice. So do the reverse.
So you did raise a little bit of, or not a little bit of money, your seed round or what you call your friends and family round from AngelList, the people that you met on AngelList. Is that correct?
Yes, our first seed round, friends and family round, we got about $60,000 from friends and family, and a couple of investors from AngelList, which I eventually met later on in person. So I think AngelList was a great resource. And then throughout the program in Techstars, we were able to get some additional investors. We took 600,000 seed notes, and then early in March we we took a $2 million equity investment in the company.
Congratulations. Congratulations. When he went into Techstars Incubator, he went to Chicago for that. So again, outside of Miami. It was in the incubator there for 3 months. And they have a standard fee or standard equity deal that they do $75K for 6%. Is it?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit more now, but yeah, I think that's what we got, standard deal for every Techstars company.
And much to Jose's liking, they've just created a satisfaction guarantee. So it wasn't available when Jose went to Techstars, but I don't think he would have executed on it. He was very happy with his experience. But now if you're not happy with your experience at Techstars, you keep the $75K and take back your 6% equity. So it's really
I like to think that it was part of the 71 pounds business model, money back guarantee refunds. Probably not, but they actually give you equity back guarantee. If you go through the program and you don't think that that the program added value to you, they actually give your equity back to you. I think it's one of the best sales that you ever have.
And then you're off and running. You've got your initial customers, but now you've got to grow, and you got to grow at a pretty fast clip. So in a couple of years, how many clients plus or minus have you acquired?
So we're proud to serve. We'll close the year with close to 3,000 customers. It's been linear growth since 2 years ago. We have a great team here that helps us with customer acquisition, sales, marketing. It's just, that's basically our number one priority, right? Number one priority, customer acquisition. Number two priority for the company, customer acquisition. Number three priority for the company, customer acquisition.
And the fourth?
Customer acquisition.
That's right.
And so in the process of learning what works and what doesn't, what are some of the things that you've tried? How have you gotten creative to acquire customers? Thought outside the box to make that happen.
It's a lot of hit and miss, right? We've tried, and one of the things that I believe the funding allowed us to do is to experiment, right? So we're able to have some marketing budgets. We're able to do different customer acquisition programs. We tried radio in Oklahoma City as an example, right? That's something that we just tested it. Instead of doing it nationwide, we said, okay, let's pick one market. Let's run with radio ads. Let's see what it goes. How many conversions we have, how many activations we have for that, right? So that's part of our learning process. We'll make a decision soon if we continue expanding that or not. We do the typical email, AdWords, marketing, PR has been actually very good for us. We dial for dollars. We do a lot of telesales. And we also work with a number of partners that are co-marketing or white labeling 71 pounds to the customer base.
And what metrics have you tracked to make sure that your acquisition strategies are working?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So 71 pounds is not exactly a recurring revenue business, right? We actually don't charge a monthly fee to our customers. It behaves very similar to a recurring revenue business, what people in the industry refer to as SaaS, software as a service. So we can estimate that a customer has X number of revenues, Y number of ship and spend, and we'll probably get Z number of ship and refunds for them. So we measure the company based on customer acquisition metrics that behave very similar to software as a service. So we track the customer acquisition cost, right? The sales and marketing spend to acquire a customer. We track the revenue on an annual basis and a lifetime basis of that particular customer. We track churn, which is the metric that how many customers leave or stop using your service over time. Fortunately for us, churn is very low. And the biggest metric for us is ROI, right? So the biggest question that I ask Matt, the marketing guy, is, okay, if we have an extra dollar in our marketing budget, where do we put it, right? So if we put $1 of sales and marketing into a customer acquisition program, how many months does it take to get that dollar back? And is it, and in a SaaS business, 18 months of an ROI is actually a good business. 12 months or less is a very good business. And 6 months or less is a very, very good business. So in the different marketing and customer acquisition programs that we have, we're trending between 6 and 12 months. There are some programs that we do under 6, which are very good, and there are some programs that we're doing which are a little bit over 12 months. So that's definitely something that we track on a weekly basis, and just trying to see what else we can do to improve and get more customers in a timely manner.
If your ROI break even were at 18 months, it would have been until 6 months ago until you really got that metric back and could trust the numbers. So there's a point in a period where you're tracking your key performance indicators, your metrics, and you don't have enough data to say what the lifetime value of this person is, but you've got to kind of look at some other metrics and have a little bit of blind faith in getting through that initial period. What was that like? Were you tracking different metrics at that point? What areas were you willing to estimate in? How do you bridge that gap?
So I think the statement is valid, right? There's a lot of times where you're not going to get all data, have to make a lot of assumptions, and that's, I think, part of where some of our industry knowledge came in, right? So I've been in the industry for the last 15 years. I kind of made some assumptions, and believe me, I have a lot of marketing research on how small and medium-sized companies behave and ship and spend. So we were able to take a lot of those assumptions, and even though it wasn't proven points in our business model, we were able to inject that into our model. As far as measuring different metrics, I think we're fortunate that the board of directors that we have, they suggested to us from the early beginning, hey, this is not a SaaS model, behaves very similar to SaaS. Our suggestion is that you manage the metrics according to a SaaS model. And we kind of stuck with that, and that's been something that we just kept over time, and I think it was, in hindsight, I think it was a great decision.
And I've seen some hands in the crowd, and I apologize, it's my fault, I forgot to mention early on. At the end, we will do a 15-minute Q&A, so if you just hold the questions for that, please. So going through this process, you've gone from being a corporate employee to a hardcore entrepreneur now. Jose knows a lot of people. I mentioned to him the other day, I mean, in just a few years, Jose has more connections than a lot of the people, most of the people that I know in South Florida when it comes to startups and entrepreneurship. He's actually introduced us to a few of our speakers. So in those 4 years, in that journey, in the transition, you've learned what it's like to be an entrepreneur and what the day in, day out's like about that. And you mentioned that it's really important to focus on what's the objective and ask yourself that question on a regular basis. Can you tell us more?
Yeah, I think it's something that maybe Matt and Mark would validate this, or some of our team members. But I just think that at the stage in which we're at, there's so many things that we can do. There's so many different paths that we can take. And I think one of the biggest things that we have to do in our company is stay focused, right? So I ask our team to always ask the question, what's the objective or what we're trying to do? And based on that objective, we rank it already, right? If it's something that we need to do in the short term, let's do it. If it's something that can wait in the medium term, let's kind of delay it. I just think it's one of the biggest things that you have to be diligent and disciplined about is what to say no to, which is very difficult to do.
Yeah, you have a certain client that's asking for a certain feature, and it seems like a great idea, but I guess you gotta, I've once read, don't write these things down. If people are asking you for certain features, you don't necessarily need to keep a log of them. The most important features will haunt you at night because people are asking for them so often. You've got to be a little careful and stay diligent on track with where the company needs to go, not where all of your customers want you to go, because you can be going in 50 directions in a case like that. And it's been a heck of a journey for you. I assume, I didn't ask you this the other day, but you went to Chicago for 3 months. That must have been an incredible sacrifice because you have a family. You have a wife, you have children. So for 3 months, you're away from them?
Yeah, so I have an awesome wife. What we did, so we have 2 kids, 5 and 8. At the time, they were much younger. So yes, I would basically fly out on Monday mornings, come back on Friday night. My wife would say, okay, here's your kids, see you on Monday, right? And we would repeat every week. But yes, I'm very grateful for the help and the support. And yes, I couldn't do this without her.
What were some of the other experiences in the journey that were major sacrifices, but you're glad you did them now, looking back?
That's a good question. Again, I think it goes back to the thick skin, right? I mean, you're going to get so many no's along the way we did. And it's just trying to keep in mind the light at the end of the tunnel, right? We're trying to do this. We're trying to build this. One of the things that I learned at FedEx in corporate America was, we would do a lot of marketing research, and we would ask our customers, what do you think we should do next? What do you think we should do next? And I can't remember who it was, but somebody came in and mentioned, and just asked one question, right? If back in the 1930s, if a car manufacturer had asked consumers what they wanted, the answer would have been, I want a faster horse. And they would have never built a car. So one of the things that I take from that experience is a lot of what we are building for our customers, yes, we take into account the feedback from the customers. Maybe it's the stubbornness that we have, but we have a set of ideas that we run by them, and it's just part of the process of building new products over time.
Okay, so keeping the focus and also having the vision that's been.
I think so. I mean, I think it's part of that difficult decision of balancing. Do you get pulled in one direction versus do you keep going in the vision that you want to pursue for the company?
And time flies when you're having fun. So part of the entrepreneurial journey is fun. It's a lot of hard work. Would you say that the past 4 years have gone by faster in any part of your life, or has it just been so excruciating that it's gone by so quick?
You should ask my wife. No, I think it's. So I saw a great interview from Charlie Rose interviewing Andre Agassi, the tennis player, a number of years ago, before he was retiring. And Charlie asked Andre to think about his career trajectory. And what Andre said was, hey, when I was younger, meaning when he was less mature, he thought it was all about winning. And then in the later years, he kind of thought and said, I've learned to realize that it's not just about the destination, but also the journey. And to me, that's something that I just, try to live, what we're doing here at 71 Pounds, my personal life. I think believe me, there's more capable people in this audience with much better destinations, i.e. exits, than we've ever had. But what I can do is I can share with you the learnings and the journey and the insights and the mistakes that we've done over time, right? So yeah, that's.
And we've got a little bit of extra time, so I want to rewind back to outsourcing the first version of the product. Jose told me that he acted as a product owner through that process, and you spec out everything, and even through to today, you spec out pretty much everything that's built. So I think that's probably a big reason why you were successful in getting a good product from outsourced resources, because you stayed very involved in the process and didn't leave your fate in somebody else's hands. Were there any lessons learned in that process that you'd like to share with us? And
Yes,
did it go overseas?
Many scars. I think you just have to keep expectations communicated with different teammates and different parties involved. I think if you can get as much diligent and detailed about what you're trying to communicate, just constant follow-up, just regular stuff that we thought initially was much easier done than said, and believe me, we burned through a lot of money and a lot of time, and we learned a lesson. So now all of our team is in-house, and that's what we're building today.
And the development team that you hired, were they were they domestic? Were they overseas?
No, so everybody's domestic, everybody's in our office in Davie, and everybody is from here.
And when you outsourced the original products?
Yeah,
that
it was
domestic?
it was half domestic, and then the rest of the team was overseas.
Okay. So that can be a challenge for some, some people go for the least expensive option and go 100% overseas. And if some of the development team is going to be overseas, I definitely recommend that there's somebody domestically or a good chunk of the team domestically that you'll work with. You'll spend a little bit more money, but you could spend a lot of money and have nothing in the end. But Jose made it work with the blended team. To kind of wrap it up, what's ABR?
ABR, always be racing, right? And always be recruiting. So that's one of the things that I learned from the Chicago folks. It's philosophy that just stayed with me over time. I spent about 10-15% of my time meeting new people, interviewing new people, just trying to see if there's a fit for our company today, or maybe if we build a role or a position for that person over time. And then the other thing, I wouldn't use the word always be racing, because fortunately for us, we're actually not in racing mode now. But I think it's always be selling, right? Always be telling your story. We talked to a number of partners, we talked to a number of investors that fortunately for us, now we have inbound calls, so they're asking about our updates on our calls. And we use that time to share with them what we're doing, our progress. At the same time, we also do some research on the company, on the investor, asking for introductions to their portfolio companies or other parties. And I just think it's part of this journey too, right? You do have to have a thick skin. You do have to sell your story, your vision. And you have to learn to receive a lot of no's in the process.
So how many yeses have you gotten? And that each one of those represents somebody that you've got to keep updated. So how many yeses have you gotten, and have you created a system for keeping everyone on the same page and updated so you don't have to repeat yourself X number of times?
Well, I think there's a few ways to do this, right? So there's definitely email updates that go to our investors on a periodic basis. There's monthly updates that go to our board of directors, our board of advisors. There's a file for potential investors down the road that we kind of keep updated on a 6-month basis or something like that, right? So high-level updates. When we do in-person discussions, again, we're just sharing with them a little bit on a high level what we're doing, and then some additional things that we're looking for in the future. I think it's a combination of, again, just using the different tools, email, phone, in-person discussions that we can provide those updates to.
Okay, so you standardize how you distribute those updates. They know when to expect them, and
For the most part, I think we can always get better at that, but yes.
Okay. And you mentioned your board of directors, board of advisors. You went outside of the state to build those teams as well, right?
Yeah, I think it's just part of the process, right? So for us, this is it's a B2B company. It's a B2B service. Most of the feedback and the people and the experience that I found 3-4 years ago in South Florida was mostly business to consumer. So we just went out and found that help outside, right? Troy Henikoff, which runs Techstars Chicago, he was one of our first investors in the company, mentors too. I asked him to be on our board of directors. He agreed. I really like Troy because he was formerly the founder of Sure Payroll. So he understood customer acquisition. He understands selling to a B2B and a small business customer. And again, I think it was one of the best decisions we ever made for the company. John Cambier is one of our investors, and he's also on our board of directors. And he's from North Carolina. And then We have a number of advisors that we seek out for specific, expertise or context that we meet and update on a regular basis.
And you received the first yes from Miami Innovation Fund. And let me put a little disclaimer on it. It's not to knock them at all. This is more about why Jose said no. And so he received the first term sheet from the Miami Innovation Fund, and that was an investment he had to say no to.
Yeah, I think it was kind of along the same lines, right? So yes, when believe me, we were very desperate for investors and for funding, but we wanted to make sure that we were partnering with the right investor. Unfortunately, we didn't see the fit on the advice and the mentorship side, so we just decided to politely pass on that option.
So look for the value-added investors, people that have backgrounds and something similar that you're doing, so the advice that you get from them can be very relevant versus just going after money. And for Jose, he not only got the better advisors, but he also got a better deal a little later on from Techstars. So it really paid off to hold out. Jose, why Miami? Or why South Florida? Any aspirations to move, or what do you see going on here? Definitely the family.
Really 4 years ago, we decided that we wanted to pursue an entrepreneurial venture. Fortunately for us, we thought and we think that we can run 71 pounds out of anywhere. So Miami was just a personal decision that we made to move here. Again, our families are both in South America, so it's closer to the family, even though we're still in the States. The grandparents get to see the kids more often, and I love the weather and I love Miami, so we decided to build a business here. Life is full of trade-offs. Definitely has had its challenges over time, but it's been a great decision for us.
And what do you see? I think we all feel the movement here, things bubbling up. What are you most excited about that you see on the horizon the next couple of years for Miami?
I think it's great to have, believe me, there's much more activity now than there was 2, 3, 4 years ago. I think there's great things like Start with Grind and Venture Hype. So I don't think I see Fakita here, but one of the things that I like are the small little things that are going on here, right? So a couple of weeks ago, Fakiti, if you don't know him, you should get to meet him. He said, "Hey, you know what? I just saw an investor having lunch with an entrepreneur. Let me pick up the lunch tab for him." So he started this tradition where an investor is going to pick up the lunch tab for somebody that's having an investor discussion, right? I think it's that pay-it-forward mentality that hopefully gets more ingrained here in South Florida. That's going to help everybody in the community. Something that I personally saw in Chicago, and whenever I travel to other parts of the country, Bay Area, New York City, you definitely see that. I hope it's something that continues to be ingrained into the community here.
Yeah, help each other out. We're all in this together type of mentality. There are only so many investment dollars to go around, so but don't think of each other as competition. I interviewed Melissa Krinsman last month, and she said just because we have more VCs coming down doesn't mean that more companies are going to get funded necessarily. There are still companies that are unfundable. There are still companies that just don't need an investment. If you ever watch Shark Tank, they just don't need it. They're better off without it. And so yeah, maybe we'll have a little rise in investment, but at the end of the day, if your company's fundable and it's well presented, and you've got a good team, you'll find the money, and don't look at the next startup as your competition unless they're going after the same customers as you, and try and help each other out. And Jose believes very much so in paying it forward. Like I said, he's introduced us to quite a few speakers and opportunities for Startup Grind. So I want to open it up to questions. Just raise your hand. I'll call on you. Please make sure you speaking almost your loudest voice to make sure that it projects through. And if I see people scratching their heads as you're talking, I will repeat your question back to the crowd. Up here first.
excuse me, you were telling that you ask for money, you get advice. This is more than advice side. When you talk normally about the time, that is called payback period. When you talked about measures of performance evaluation, ROI refers normally to the return on investment, which is a percentage of the investment. So when you describe, let's say, that within 6 months you get your money back or something like that, that is a payback period. When you are looking for ROI, that would be a percentage. So if you invest in marketing $1,000, and within a set period, such as a year, you get $1,100, that would be 10% return on investment. A third performance evaluation measure is residual income, which is a combination, and I don't want to inundate you with accounting, but when you talk to investors, you talk money, you want to give the impression that you don't mix up basic issues that every introductory accounting student learns. So it's important to keep the terminology straight, also for better communication, and also to demonstrate or even project as if you understand basic investment and money management. So somebody that is going to put money into you feels that, hey, at least they can measure their performance and communicate it in a way that is generally accepted.
Okay, so a little more advice than a question, but know your terminology. And Jose, you mentioned ROI, and I think we could call that a 1.0 ROI, a break even. And that's what Jose was talking about. Sometimes at 18 months, sometimes at 12, you're doing pretty good. 6 months, you're doing excellent. And when you break even, and after that, you actually get to start realizing a return on your investment. Right here. Yeah.
Is there a lot of competition in your field? It seems kind of like a niche market. And if there is, like, what do you do to differentiate yourself from your competitors?
Yeah, so unfortunately, we're not the only ones doing this. I wish we were. You know, the guarantees have been around for the last 20 years. And yes, a lot of our competitors are former guys like me that came out of FedEx and UPS. They've traditionally focused on the large enterprise market. And, you know, one of the things that we're different is because we're going after the small and medium-sized customer base, and we're automating this through software and technology.
I read a great quote today on Twitter, and I've heard it many times before, but just reminded me of it, and it's absolutely relevant right now. And know your know your competitors. When you're pitching to investors and you say, I have no competition, what they're thinking is you're in the wrong business. So know them, know what differentiates you, and be forward with about it, because either you didn't do your research or you're in the wrong business. In the back.
Can you tell us how you decided to compensate your board of directors and board of advisors? Because as a startup, these are pretty accomplished people, and I think giving them advice for free and giving them equity and giving them a quarterly check. And along with that, how do you utilize them? You know, when you're meeting with them, I'm trying to form a board of advisors, and I'm challenging these questions. How to pay them, and how best to get my money back for
Yeah, so I think that's a great question. So our board of directors, they're investors in a company, so we don't provide them any compensation. We don't provide them any additional equity. They asked to be on our board of directors, so we accept it, you know, and we take their advice and their feedback and their suggestions. We typically meet on a quarterly basis. So actually later this week, we're having our board of directors call or meeting for Q3. And then, you know, so that's on a regular basis, you know, with one of the two directors, you know, I have a monthly call with them, and we kind of share updates and issues and challenges. So that's more on a case-by-case basis. Our board of advisors, you know, typically on an advisor level, you provide you know, an advisory equity, you know, program to them. You can go to AngelList and see what the averages are, anywhere from, you know, 1/4 of a point to 3/4 of a point, typically on a 2-year vesting. And then after that 2 years, you decide if that investor, if it's a mutually beneficial decision for that investor and the company to continue, and you extend that or you just stop it. That's more on an informal basis. you know, hey, John, you know, here's, you know, what do you think of this particular challenge that we're doing, right? What do you think of, you know, this particular, I don't know, competitor, or, you know, hey, we're looking to get into this particular space. Anybody that you think you can make us some introductions to? So that's more on a case-by-case basis, and that's typically done through an equity grant.
And when it comes to your board of directors, you mentioned they are your investors, so is the weight of their vote equally proportionate to the amount of equity that they hold in the company?
No, so, you know, there's 3 people in the board of directors. One, you know, I have 1/3 of the votes, and each of the board members have another third. Typically, those are, you know, detailed in the term sheet and the negotiation structure of the investment. But yeah.
Yeah, right here.
So as a B2B company, do you have any advice, I guess, that you could give to any other B2B companies for acquiring customers?
What kind of business do you have?
It's a software company, a web-based software company for commercial real estate.
Commercial real estate, yeah, I think, I mean, I'm going to make assumptions here, but, you know, you have a clear value proposition. There's probably some databases of decision makers in your industry that you can buy or you can rent. You can do some direct marketing for them, to them. There's probably some trade shows that are particular of interest to you. There's probably a number of partners and industry associations that have affiliations with your customer base. There's probably some software providers or any other kind of providers that are already selling to that customer that you can potentially partner with and see if there's a joint value proposition there off the top of my head. We can talk offline if you want.
Yes, right up front.
You're growing now, and I'm wondering what type of people are you looking for? What type of positions do they need to fill now in the stage of growth versus the beginning of your company?
Yes, it's a great question. So we're looking for always, right? So salespeople, we're looking for marketing people, operations, customer service. I'm interested in hiring more for attitude and interest and energy than experience, right? So I'm not too interested in the resume. You know, I think there's a lot of things that somebody without experience can actually do to create a difference. Just a regular phone call, just something different and unique. That, believe me, I see a lot of resumes, and you know, there's some challenges with the talent pool here in South Florida. Sorry, but yes, there's you know, I think there's a number of creative ways in which people can differentiate themselves. I think for us, again, it's not about the resume or the number of years in a particular company. I think it's more about the attitude. It's about the, hey, I'm willing to roll up my sleeves. I'm willing to do something different. I'm willing to learn, and I just want to go along with the ride and see where it goes, right? So those are part of the traits that I'm looking for when hiring people.
And of the technical, you feel like you get that here? You have enough technical people?
We're always looking for people. Any Ruby on Rails engineers, we're always hiring. But yes, I mean, it's a challenge. We've actually had to import some engineers from out of state and bring them here. And we also work with a lot of the universities here to try to nurture, you know, internship programs. Some of the recent grads that join our company and kind of, you know, develop over time. Those, you know, we're bottoms up and top down kind of approach.
Back there, picture.
From a sales standpoint, you start off, curious to know if you're just looking at domestic sales and targeting, your target markets are domestic, or have you already gone into the international realm, being that you're in South Florida and you're from South America? And if not, what's holding you back? Are you waiting to penetrate that market? I'm curious to hear kind of the decision process in terms of how you decided to just focus on a domestic market and grow beyond that, or if not.
Yeah, so I'm going to bore you with a little bit of stats, right? So parcel market in the U.S. is $100 billion with a B. Small businesses do 30% of that. That's $30 billion. There's 28 million small businesses in the US. We only have 3,000 of them, right? So there's a lot of market and there's a lot of customers that we haven't tapped into the US yet. What we've done is today we serve US and Canada. And Canada came as an inbound, as a surprise. We were able to support them. Actually, we're fortunate that maybe about once a month I get a call from somebody overseas that says, hey, you know what? Can I license 71 pounds in Israel, for example, right? And we had that call a couple of months ago. And, you know, going back to focus and going back to what's the objective and going back to saying no, you know, believe me, I think it makes a great story, it makes a great, you know, hey, this is sexy, right? 71 pounds, moving from an unsexy shipping business is now in the international markets. But again, it's not what we do. I think, my opinion is, I think we're gonna lose our focus. I think there's so much market in the US that we just need to make sure what we're going after. And you know, maybe over time we'll determine if that's something that we want to do. Maybe at that point we decide to raise some additional money to go into international markets. But I just think that there's so much huge potential in the US that we just need to say no to that. Right here.
Just wondering, have you thought about any strategic partnerships as a way of building up customer base, or is the ROI on that very different versus just sales?
So can I ask you, can you expand a little bit on strategic partners?
I guess I'm not in your industry, but I was just wondering, I don't know, partnering with someone like Square or a company that has a huge.
Yeah, so great question, right? So 30% of our customers today come from the partners channel. So we work with e-commerce shopping cart providers, we work with industry associations, we work with third-party logistics companies that are co-marketing, reselling our services. Some of them are white labeling our services. Believe me, it's the best ROI that we have, right? We don't pay anything up front. They do the marketing, they get us the customers, and you know, it's like having an outside sales force without paying their salary. The challenge is, you know, we have to pursue them. They work at their own pace. And yes, we have maybe over 50 today. And there's probably a few hundred more out there that we're in process of pursuing. But yes, it's a very important, you know, customer acquisition channel for us.
How does it actually work? You said you don't pay them anything, and
So we don't pay them up. So I'll give you an example. BigCommerce, you know, e-commerce shopping cart provider. They co-market 71 pounds to their 40,000 merchants. They provide us with the customer. We give them the refunds, and then we pay BigCommerce a revenue share on the back end.
And one more back here.
How do you balance along the way rate of growth, when to raise money? Do you ever regret raising money and giving away equity versus bootstrapping?
Great question. Ask the question again. I just want to make sure I understood.
Yeah, so where do you find that sweet spot? Do you regret any past decisions of trying to bootstrap your growth, achieving a certain rate of growth? Obviously, if you raise money, you can grow faster, and you're giving away equity. In that mix over at your different funding rounds, would you wish you would have given away less? Do you wish you would have raised more at a certain time?
Yeah, so I think it's a great question. So hindsight's always 20/20, right? And I personally believe things happen for a reason. So yes, we bootstrap initially. We faced some very, very tough times. We weren't able to get customers. We weren't able to get the product on time. You know, fortunately for us, things happened. We got into, we built our beta. We got into Techstars. You know, I try not to regret on those decisions. I try to just think forward, and I think it's fair, right? I think you know, we were able to raise money and provide our investors with a fair amount of percentage of the company. Yeah, my philosophy is hopefully we don't have to raise anymore. If we do, then hopefully it'll be for future growth. I think that we can build this company and continue to build it based on the profits of the company and the operations funding the business. But if something new happens, like, you know, expanding into new markets or doing something else, then, you know, we'll look at it on a case-by-case basis. But yeah, go crazy if I look back and regret every decision we made, right?
I know I said one more, but I got one more right here. Yep.
I have my own startup, the name is Zika, and I don't know if you consider your company a technology company, because it started off as services, and then you had this great, idea to do it in a technology form. At what point did you start your 2,000 pitches? Your journey through the pitches. Did you have a beta? Did you start pitching it before you got it developed? Because I'm waiting for it to be developed. There's companies that are bidding on how they're going to develop mine. At what point do you start going in front of the angel investors, the VCs? Is it when you have an idea, a whiteboard, or an actual working mock-up?
Great question. I started when I had, literally an idea without a PowerPoint presentation, right? So along the way, I got too many no's, right? And they, that's when you ask for money and they give you advice, one of the pieces of advice is, hey, build a deck, right? Hey, come up with some market data, come up with some business models. So that's the kind of feedback that, again, you take for whoever the source is. Some of the feedback's good, some of the feedback is not so good. To answer your question, yes, I literally started from zero. And along the way, I think, it's been part of refining that process, and fortunately for us today, we don't have to pitch for money, but I pitch for updates and feedback, and hey, is there anybody else that we should be talking to that you know of when we do those quote pitches? But yeah, I think it's ever-ending process that's just part of selling the vision and the idea for your company.
Thank you.
And Jose, can you elaborate a little bit on, if you're going to start pitching from day one, who should you be pitching to? Who should be the audience at that point? And at what time do you move on to a new audience?
I think that's a great question, and I think I'll go back to what's the objective, right? I think if you know what the objective is, right? I mean, there are some great companies that don't want any venture money. There's some great companies that maybe they just want some friends and family money. There's maybe some other companies that are just looking for a lifestyle business. I think 71 Pounds could be a great lifestyle business, but we decided not to do that. We decided not to pursue that. We chose early on to take some early investors and venture investors. So our path was kind of guided by that decision. I don't know. I think it depends on the objective, right? I mean, if you are looking for, again, I don't know, a venture investor, then yeah, you probably have to have traction, users, ideally revenue, and depending on what you're willing to give up, it's part of that process, right? I mean, maybe you find this great angel investor that has a great fit with your industry, and they're willing to make the bet on you as the entrepreneur without having the traction without having the users. He or she is able to provide you feedback and guidance and act more as an advisor than an investor. I just think that those are kind of the dynamics that you play. I took every single meeting that I could get and talk to anybody and everybody. But I think in hindsight, I would go back and say, okay, what's the objective? What do you want to do with your company? And based on that, use the different resources that are out there to pursue it.
Okay. So yeah, depending on where you're at in the stage, I mean, idea stage, thinking of yourself more in the friends and family. Maybe you take a step up from that and you end up with an angel investor. But a VC, anything institutional, is very metrics driven, and if you don't have a baseline and they can't see where it's going to go from there, if they do invest in you, they're going to take your company and your house. So think of where you are, what your objective is, how much money you're looking to raise, and then focus your pitch on those audiences. Well, I'd like to wrap it up by saying thank you to our sponsors. We've got Moving Picture again, video production, and make your company come to life with video. We've got Google for Entrepreneurs, and also the Knight Foundation. Again, that's knightcities.org. If you've got an idea to take a chunk out of that $5 million and make Miami a better city. They're looking for civic engagement, improvements in talent pools, and improvement in employment. So you can check that out at 9cities.org. Let's give Jose one more standing ovation, please.